أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين واللعنة الدائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين. Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. Inshallah you're doing well. I know we're a couple days past the birth of our beloved third Imam. Nonetheless, I would like to congratulate you guys again on the birth of our beloved second Imam. Forgive me, Imam Hassan al-Mujtaba salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi. And I hope that the month of Ramadan has been going well. You know that now we have passed the midway mark or halfway mark in this month. So it's passing by a lot faster than I think we all thought. I think we always make that mistake every year in Ramadan. We always think that it's going to pass by a lot slower than it actually does. So as you know, we've been continuing with the Tafsir of Surah Yaseen. Alhamdulillah, it's been a learning experience for myself as well, and I've learned quite a bit about this surah. There were some verses in this surah that I continuously read over and over, throughout, just growing up and for a number of years. And alhamdulillah, I was able to understand most of it, but then there's always those verses that even if you can understand basic Arabic, still is a little difficult. You might understand the words in the verse, but you're not able to really understand what the verse is really trying to say. So there were a couple of those verses that alhamdulillah, even for myself, it was a good learning experience to know and figure out what they're saying. So we'll do a quick review from verse 52 to 58. We ended at verse 58. And the good news is, the way it's looking, it seems very doable to finish Surah Yaseen within the month of Ramadan. I think we might actually have a little bit of extra time in our last session, so that's a big achievement. But let me review from verse 52 onward. So we said that Surah Yaseen has four main parts. Number one is prophethood. Number two was the story of those three prophets. Number three are the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And number four was the return, or the ma'ad, or the day of judgment. These are the four parts of Surah Yaseen. Having said that, we went through pretty much three of those, and we had started in discussing the fourth chapter, which was the chapter of the the return, or ma'ad, or the day of judgment. Now, this verses 52 onwards actually talks about what things are going to look like at that point when people are raised. We said the Quran talks about the trumpet being blown into it twice. And in some verses of the Quran, that is referred to as nafkh sur, as you see in verse 51, wa nufikha fi sur. And then in the same verses here in Surah Yaseen, it's also referred to as sayha, that loud noise that comes on that day, right? And we said that these two are both referring to the same thing. When this trumpet is blown the second time, of course, we know that everyone gets up and they now start to move. As the Quran says, إِلَى رَبِّهِمْ يَنْسِلُونَ in verse 51. فَإِذَا هُمْ مِنَ الْأَجْدَاثِ إِلَى رَبِّهِمْ يَنْسِلُونَ. They're in movement towards their Lord, right? So everyone is moving towards a meeting point, right? إِنَّ يَوْمَ الْفَصْلِ كَانَ مِيقَاتًا. It's a time of meeting, basically. So then we said that verse 52 explains the reaction that people have to this trumpet being blown into it. قَالُوا يَا وَيْلَنَا. They said, woe upon us. Woe is basically like, wow, what's happening? Or what a bad fate do we have ahead of us? يَا وَيْلَنَا مَنْ بَعَثَنَا مِنْ مَرْقَدِنَا. Who was it that raised us from our graves? We said that this was the initial reaction of the kuffar, because initially when they come across this situation, they're surprised and they're in shock of what had happened, right? Then we said the second part of the verse explains what their reaction is after a moment of realization, right? They say, هَذَا مَا وَعَدَ الرَّحْمَنِ. This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had promised us. وَصَدَقَ الْمُرْسَلُونَ. And the mursalun, the messengers, were telling the truth actually. إِن كَانَتْ إِلَّا صَيْحَةً وَاحِدَةً فَإِذَا هُمْ جَمِيعٌ لَدَيْنَا مُحْضَرُونَ. Verse 53. The Quran says, with this one call, all of them are right there with us. In verse 51, it says yansilun, means they move quickly. So in a split second, everyone is going to be present there. Verse 54, فَالْيَوْمَ لَا تُظْلَمُ نَفْسٌ شَيْئًا وَلَا تُجْزَوْنَ إِلَّا مَا كُنْتُمْ تَعْمَلُونَ. On that day, no one will be done injustice, meaning that everyone will see exactly the reward or punishment of their own actions. وَلَا تُجْزَوْنَ إِلَّا مَا كُنْتُمْ تَعْمَلُونَ. And they will not be given anything except for the actions that they have committed, right? It's interesting that in other verses of the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, the end of Surah Mutaffifin actually, He says that on that day people, the kuffar, in this life, the kuffar used to make fun of the mu'mineen. On that day they are made fun of. And then it says, هَلْ ثُوِّبَ الْكُفَّارُ مَا كَانُوا يَعْمَلُونَ. Were the kuffar not given exactly what they had done to others? Meaning that even the way they're punished in the same way that they used to create problems for people in this world, right? This is what this line means. They will only be given exactly whatever it was that they were doing. Let me take a moment to Assalamu alaikum to brothers and sisters who are with us. Nice to have you guys with us. So, moving on, then the verse continues. إِنَّ أَصْحَابَ الْجَنَّةِ الْيَوْمَ فِي شُغُلٍ فَاكِهُونَ. In this day or on that day, the people of heaven, فِي شُغُلٍ فَاكِهُونَ. They're so busy enjoying themselves in heaven that they're happy and they're busy, right? And I explained what this meant in our day-to-day lives. هُمْ وَأَزْوَاجُهُمْ فِي ظِلَالٍ عَلَى الْأَرَائِكِ مُتَّكِئُونَ. They're so busy, they're lying there, they're talking with one another, just chit-chatting with one another. In other verses of the Quran it says, وَنَزَعْنَا مَا فِي صُدُورِهِم مِّن غِلٍّ إِخْوَانًا عَلَى سُرُرٍ مُتَقَابِلِينَ. These guys, they had some dislike towards one another. We stripped their hearts of that dislike. Now that they're sitting in heaven, they sit with one another as if they are brothers of one another, right? إِخْوَانًا عَلَى سُرُرٍ مُتَقَابِلِينَ. They're lying down on those beds and they're talking with one another. They're happy with what, they have, basically. And then we explained also that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that He takes pairs of these people and He pairs them up in heaven. We explained how that happens and how on that day the normal relationships that we have don't technically exist. Relationships are based on faith and iman, or kufr and disbelief. Now we explained that in the last session. لَهُمْ فِيهَا, verse 57, لَهُمْ فِيهَا فَاكِهَةٌ وَلَهُمْ مَا يَدَّعُونَ. They have fruits in there and they have everything that they could ever wish for, right? Idda'a means anything that they call for, anything that they demand. Salamun qawlan min Rabbir Rahim. This is where we ended last session. And amongst their blessings is salamun. And this salam is coming to them from who? Min Rabbir Rahim. This salam is coming to them from a merciful Lord. The Lord that gave them the opportunity to work hard for 50, 60, 70, 80 years, whatever the case may be, and then enter a heaven where forever they would have blessings, right? This is Rabbin Rahim. He's providing you and I with an opportunity where you work hard for a number of years, right? And then, but the reward of that is that you end up being in heaven for as long as you live, which is forever when it comes to Qiyamah. So I want to explain this verse a little bit more. We know that the hereafter and heaven in particular is known as Darus Salam, right? The place of peace, the place of calmness, the place of tranquility. And unlike what most people think, the word Islam actually does not mean peace. I know that that's said a lot, but just from Islam is a religion of peace, but the word Islam does not mean peace. Literally, it means submission. That's what Islam means. Salam, on the other hand, however, no, that literally means peace and calmness and tranquility. Now, this word salam has been mentioned in so many different verses of the Quran with regards to the people who are coming to the Day of Judgment. You find that if this person is a good person, the moment he leaves this world, everything from that point on is a matter of peace for him, right? So for example, it starts here that when the malaika come to take the life of the person, verses of the Quran say, if he's a good person, الَّذِينَ تَتَوَفَّاهُمُ الْمَلَائِكَةُ الطَّيِّبِينَ يَقُولُونَ سَلَامٌ عَلَيْكُمْ, right? While they're taking his soul from his body, they tell him salamun, meaning what? Meaning that from this point on, everything is going to be peaceful. أُدْخُلُوا الْجَنَّةَ بِمَا كُنْتُمْ تَعْمَلُونَ. That Jannah is different from Yawm al-Qiyamah. It's entering the heaven of the Barzakh. Then you move on from that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that when the people are in Yawm al-Qiyamah, when the people of heaven are seen, they are called out, وَنَادَى أَصْحَابَ الْجَنَّةِ أَنْ سَلَامٌ عَلَيْكُمْ. The other people give them salam. The other people tell them that this is a place of peace and tranquility. Then when they're entering into heaven, again the Quran says the angels are coming down on them and saying, listen, salamun alaykum, this is a place of peace for you. You have nothing else to worry about. وَالْمَلَائِكَةُ يَدْخُلُونَ عَلَيْهِمْ مِنْ كُلِّ بَابٍ Salamun alaykum bima sabartum, right? It's again a moment of peace for you. And then the Quran, again, you see this key word of salam, which is such a big factor that we lack in our lives in this world, right? Part of it is our problem and the wrong decisions that we make. Part of it doesn't even have to do with that. Part of it is just because we live in this world. This world cannot be a place of peace and tranquility, right? And that's fundamentally what Islam will teach us about this concept. You know, when a lot of people talk about reaching ultimate peace and ultimate tranquility and reaching a point where you are ultimately happy, right? And you have full contentment with your life. Technically, such a thing is impossible in this world. And Islam does not really, and this is why you find in the verses of the Quran does not push this issue too much in the verses of the Quran. It pushes, for example, the issue of patience a lot. The issue of trying to be content with whatever you have. The Quran pushes that a lot. But the Quran does not emphasize too much on how happy do you feel in your life in this world. Why? Because technically you cannot be fully happy in this world. Right? And that's a fundamental misunderstanding that people have, especially in this culture that we grow up in, right? In this culture we're taught, and this is the same message in self-help books and motivational speakers and all that stuff, where you find that you're taught that yes, if you do things the right way and you take care of yourself, there is a point that you will reach, which is a point of complete happiness in life. No, the Quran and Islam does not believe in that. Yes, you can do certain things to be happier compared to other situations that you might put yourself in. Yes, absolutely. But full happiness and complete happiness, no one had that. Not even the Prophet had that. That's why so many of the verses of the Quran says, وَلَا تَحْزَنْ عَلَيْهِمْ. Don't be sad. Don't take it to heart for them. What does that mean? That meant that technically even the Prophet, from a materialistic and from a worldly perspective, he wasn't happy in the sense that he didn't have any worries and that he was completely, there was nothing that would bother him or nothing that would annoy him. No, there were a lot of that stuff in his life. However, as the Quran is showing, once you leave this world, if you've done things the right way, then the next world becomes a house of salam. It becomes a house of peace and tranquility. And what would we not give to be able to live that type of life? When the Quran says these guys are sitting there, they're lying down on beds, عَلَى الْأَرَائِكِ مُتَّكِئُونَ, this is like the most relaxing and comfortable thing that you could ever, imagine. That's what the Quran is trying to describe for us, right? Because you can mention a lot of different blessings when it comes to heaven, but the Quran is talking about this moment where these guys are just basically, they kick back, as we say, and they're just enjoying that time that they have in heaven. So this word salam, you see that it comes up over and over, because the next world, if you do things the right way, is a world of complete peace and tranquility. That's why this phrase is mentioned over and over in the verses of the Quran. لا خوف عليهم ولا هم يحزنون. People who come on that day, they don't have khawf and they don't have huzn. Khawf is something you're worried about, you're afraid of in the future. Huzn is the sadness that you feel right now. They don't feel any sadness at that moment. They also don't have any worries or concerns in the future as well. Okay, so this was verse 58. I'm going to move on, inshallah, to verse 59 of Surah Yaseen. Moving on. وَامْتَازُوا الْيَوْمَ أَيُّهَا الْمُجْرِمُونَ. Now, when you come on this day, the wrongdoers and the ones who are doing well, these two have to be separated from one another. When we live in this world, everything is mixed up with one another. But what we read in the verses of the Quran, obviously, is that on that day, things are separated from one another. And also, along these lines, what we also read is that the same way this happens on the Day of Judgment, to a lesser degree, this also happens when the 12th Imam reappears. In fact, when you look in Islamic theology, there is a lot of similarities between the Day of Judgment and the return of the 12th Imam. Partially because both of them are a manifestation of the truths of life, right? That's what the Day of Judgment is. The truths of life start to show themselves a little bit more. That's also what you find with the return of the 12th Imam, right? That's why in this dua iftitah that we read these nights, we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ya Allah, send this 12th Imam حتى لا يستخفي بشيء من الحق مخافة أحد من خلقك, so that there is a situation comes about where people, no part of religion and no part of truth is hidden because we're afraid of this person or that person, right? So the same way this happens on Yawm al-Qiyamah, it's also something that happens to a little bit of a lesser degree also with the return of our 12th Imam. Moving on, verse 60. أَلَمْ أَعْهَدْ إِلَيْكُمْ يَا بَنِي آدَمَ أَنْ لَا تَعْبُدُوا الشَّيْطَانَ إِنَّهُ لَكُمْ عَدُوٌّ مُبِينٌ. My people of Bani Adam, did I not tell you guys, did your Lord not tell you that you're not supposed to worship shaitan? إِنَّهُ لَكُمْ عَدُوٌّ مُبِينٌ. He's a clear enemy of yours. وَأَنِ اعْبُدُونِي هَذَا صِرَاطٌ مُسْتَقِيمٌ. Didn't I tell you guys this? None of this is a surprise, brothers and sisters. Even those who are raised on that day, what did they say? They say, هَذَا مَا وَعَدَ الرَّحْمَنُ وَصَدَقَ الْمُرْسَلُونَ. This is exactly what we were told. And the messengers were actually right. We knew that this was going to happen, right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, listen, you guys aren't supposed to act surprised about any of this. This is exactly what you expected, because I told you guys that this was going to happen. Then he moves on to verse 62, and this one is a lesson for us. وَلَقَدْ أَضَلَّ مِنْكُمْ جِبِلًّا كَثِيرًا. And you guys saw that this shaitan, he misguided a big group from you. أَفَلَمْ تَكُونُوا تَعْقِلُونَ. You guys didn't think? This is a lesson for us, brothers and sisters, that we look around a lot of times and we see a lot of people might be taking the wrong steps in their lives. You might find a lot of people are going down the wrong path. Islam has taught us that instead of looking at other people and saying, because all these people are doing these things, therefore I have to walk in the same footsteps. No, your reaction is supposed to be the other way around, because you know what's right and what's wrong. when you see people going down the wrong road, in the wrong path, this is supposed to ring a bell for you. You're supposed to say, wow, if I'm not careful, Shaitan will get me the same way he has gotten these individuals. Right? Now, I want to be clear. You have to be careful not to say that in a judgmental way. And I want to clarify this just a little bit. That when we talk about being judgmental, a lot of people think that we're talking about saying this is halal or this is haram. Or no. That's not being judgmental. That's just explaining the religion. But the way you see things and your understanding of your spirituality compared to the spirituality of other individuals, those are two places where being judgmental starts to show itself a whole lot more. If I sit there and say these guys are on the wrong path, therefore I'm perfect, well, that's a problem, right? But if I sit there and say this person made this mistake in this situation, I have to be careful not to make the same mistake, because Shaitan can get me with regards to this particular part of my religion the same way he got everyone else. Then that's a warning for us, and we have to be careful about that, right? So instead of sitting there and saying, because everyone is doing this, I'm going to do this as well, the Quran says, no, you're supposed to sit there and say, look, everyone fell for this trick of Shaitan. I'm going to try my best. We all have faults and we all have mistakes, but I'm going to try my best not to fall into this trap of Shaitan. Don't you see أَذَلَّ مِنْكُمْ جِبِلًّا كَثِيرًا? Don't you see that he misguided so many people from you guys? أَفَلَمْ تَكُونُوا تَعْقِلُونَ? You guys weren't thinking about this? Now, he moves on to this verse 63, and this is one of the most critical principles that we have in Islamic theology, brothers and sisters, and that is this, that every person who enters into hellfire, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks him or her a question. And that question is this: were you not told that this day was going to come? This is very important, because a lot of us are taught that yes, people do wrong things, they go to hell. No, it doesn't work like that. Yes, people who know the truth and then they do wrong things, yes, then they enter into hellfire. But the verses of the Quran teach us that every person who enters into hellfire, he is asked this question: Alam takun ayati tutla alaykum? My verses, they didn't come to you, I didn't send you any prophets. And then all of them say qalu bala. All of them say yes. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, قَالَ فَادْعُوا وَمَا دُعَاءُ الْكَافِرِينَ إِلَّا فِي ضَلَالٍ. Okay, if you knew the truth and still you turned away from it and still you did wrong things, then try to ask your Lord for forgiveness. There's not going to be any forgiveness for you on that day, right? You can try وَمَا دُعَاءُ الْكَافِرِينَ إِلَّا فِي ضَلَالٍ. You can try to pray to him, but that dua is lost. There's no benefit in that dua, because you got the message, you got the memo. هذه جهنم التي كنتم توعدون, verse 63. This is that hellfire that we used to tell you about. Like, this is kuntum tu'adun in Arabic. When they use kana with another verb, that means something that was continuously done, right? Like when we have hadith about the Prophet, for example, about the Imams, that they continuously used to do something, in the hadith you will find kana and a verb beside it, right? Like, for example, we have hadith that the Prophet used to always get up when he used to see Lady Fatima, right? So the hadith says kana yaqumu, not just yaqumu. He used to do this. So هذه جهنم التي كنتم توعدون. This is that heaven that you were, that hellfire that you were continuously warned about, but you decided to disregard this, right? So everyone who enters into hellfire, they have been told about hellfire. They got the memo, and based on this verse of the Quran, they got the memo multiple times, not just one time. Because if he were to just do it one time, then it wouldn't be merciful. It would just be just. But we know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not just. He's also merciful. And that's why he says, kuntum tu'adun. We continuously told you about this. Islawha al-yawma bima kuntum takfurun. On this day, now you guys have to deal with it. You have to be placed into it because of your kufran. Then he says this, verse 65. Al-yawma nakhtimu ala afwahihim. Today, we are going to stamp their mouths. وَتُكَلِّمُنَا أَيْدِيهِمْ وَتَشْهَدُ أَرْجُلُهُم. And instead what's going to happen is that their arms or their hands, they are going to start speaking to us. وَتَشْهَدُ أَرْجُلُهُم, and their legs and their feet are now going to bear witness on behalf of them. بِمَا كَانُوا يَكْسِبُونَ, with regards to the things that they have gained. Now, a quick point before I explain this verse. As you can see, it says بِمَا كَانُوا يَكْسِبُونَ. Kasb in Arabic means what? Means to gain something, which denotes that you have now something in your possession. Like when we do things, right? A lot of times we assume we did this thing and now we're separate from the action. The action is done and I'm here, right? Time has passed. If I, God forbid, slap someone in the face, the moment I'm done from a worldly perspective, the moment I'm done slapping this person in the face or saying something hurtful to a person, as time passes by, I feel like I'm separate from that action, right? That was an action I did yesterday or 5 minutes ago, for example. The verses of the Quran say, no, this is something that you obtained. Because you obtained it, what does that mean technically? That means it's still with you. That's why when you come on the Day of Judgment, it starts to show itself. Because yes, the physical aspect of our actions is bound within time, and therefore it ends the moment the time of that action ends. But the spiritual aspect of our actions, no, it goes beyond time, and that's why it remains with your soul even after it's done. This is all from yaksibun. These are things that these guys obtained. What does that mean? That means it's with them, right? It's not that it's done and it's gone. No, it's still with them. So of course we know that other verses of the Quran also talk about this concept, that on that day there are situations where the kuffar are even surprised. As the verses of the Quran say, that they're so surprised on that day that they turn to their hands and their legs. They say, "Lima shahidtum alayna?" Why are you guys, like, we thought you were on our side. If you know, when people do wrong things in this world, a lot of times they won't assume that like their own hand or their own arm or their own eye, or I would say their own tongue, because that's a big one. That's a big problem we have. They won't assume that the things that they associated with themselves would then turn on them and would would be bearing witness against them, right? That's why in other verses of the Quran, God says, وَمَا كُنْتُمْ تَسْتَتِرُونَ أَن يَشْهَدَ عَلَيْكُمْ سَمْعُكُمْ وَأَبْصَارُكُمْ. You guys, when you guys were doing these different things, you were plotting against the religion, you were spreading evil things, you didn't cover this from your hands and your mouth and your tongue and your feet and your legs and your own body, right? Why? Because you didn't think that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has agents like sitting in your body. It's very interesting, right? So وَمَا كُنْتُمْ تَسْتَتِرُونَ أَن يَشْهَدَ عَلَيْكُمْ سَمْعُكُمْ وَلَا أَبْصَارُكُمْ وَلَكِنْ ظَنَنْتُمْ. You guys didn't think and assume that even your own hands and arms would be bearing witness against you. This is something we have to remember, brothers and sisters. That's why when you look at the dua that we have for wudu, the dua of wudu, every part of it, every part that you wash or you do mash of, we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ya Allah, purify this particular part of my body from the things that I have done, right? And the parts in wudu that we purify and we wash are the parts that we normally use for most of our functions on a daily basis, right? Like it's our face, which is, our eyes and our tongue and things of that nature. It's our hands. And then the dua says, Ya Allah, this hand of mine, don't make it one of those hands that does wrong. These feet, purified because I've used these feet to walk in the wrong path or go to the wrong places, right? So these organs of ours, they are technically agents of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All right, let me make sure we're back because my connection is giving me some issues. I don't know if okay, perfect. So we do have a question from Brother Muhammad Sajjad. Before I continue, he is asking, with regards to these organs, will they bear witness only to evil deeds or good as well? As far as I know, that's a tough question. I would say that they would do both. However, the verses of the Quran say, and yashhada alaykum, that they bear witness alaykum, which usually denotes that they are bearing witness against you. So that's a good question, Muhammad Sajjad. I really don't know the answer to it for sure. I would assume both, but then this verse says yashhad alaykum. In Arabic, when they want to say that someone bared witness for you, they say shahida lakum, right? But if someone bears witness against you, then they say shahida alayka, right? So I'm really not sure. I'll figure out the answer to that inshallah for the next session, but good question. Moving on, we reached verse number 66. وَلَوْ نَشَاءُ لَطَمَسْنَا عَلَىٰ أَعْيُنِهِمْ. The Quran is saying, these guys, although they'll come on the day of judgment and we'll deal with them at that point, however, if we wanted to stop them while they're still in this world and they're living this life, we could easily do that. وَلَوْ نَشَاءُ لَطَمَسْنَا عَلَىٰ أَعْيُنِهِمْ. If we wanted to, we could have removed their vision altogether. فَاسْتَبَقُوا الصِّرَاطَ فَأَنَّىٰ يُبْصِرُونَ. And how would they be able to find their path in life if we were to take away their vision altogether? How would they be able to find their way to plot against Islam if we were to take away their vision and their thought process altogether? But we haven't done that. We've allowed this to happen. وَلَوْ نَشَاءُ لَمَسَخْنَاهُمْ عَلَىٰ مَكَانَتِهِمْ. If we wanted to, right where they are standing, we could have changed them, and we have done maskh. We could have turned them into animals if we wanted to, as the Quran says that it has done with other groups of people, in particular a group of Bani Israel. فَمَا اسْتَطَاعُوا مُضِيًّا وَلَا يَرْجِعُونَ. And if we were to do this, they would not be able to do anything at that point. They wouldn't be able to move forward or backward at that point, because you're an animal at that point. And it's interesting, Ayatollah Jawadi makes a very beautiful point about this. I've mentioned this in some of our talks in the past, that these human beings that turn into animals, they don't completely turn into animals. They're human beings still, but they function within the body of an animal. And that's what their punishment really is. Otherwise, if an animal is just really an animal, it's not painful for him, right? Like a donkey, we see a donkey and we feel bad for him, right? But technically, you're not supposed to feel bad for a donkey, because a donkey is a donkey, right? If you guys are joining now, I bet you're a little surprised. Like, what is Shaykh talking about? But a donkey is a donkey. It's not like he's not upset that he's a donkey, right? And this goes fundamentally back to a philosophical discussion that our philosophers talk about, that everything is basically comfortable in its own skin and with its own existence. And technically, you cannot change the existence of something, because that is what makes it who and what it is. Now, that's a longer discussion. I don't want to go into that right now. But nonetheless, when the Quran says we took these people and we changed them into monkeys, in particular, has been mentioned in the verses of the Quran, what the verse is talking about is that these people are still human beings. And in some ahadith, it says that when these people used to see each other, they used to feel embarrassed. I can't remember if they used to see each other or they used to see their relatives from the human beings who had not gone through this, basically this incident of changing into human. They felt embarrassed when they saw this, right? Because it reminded them of where they could have been and what they had come down to, basically. Nonetheless, the Quran says if we wanted to do maskh of these guys, we could have done it very easily, and then they would have not been able to do anything, really. And that's verse 67. So Muhammad Sajjad is asking, what about intentions? Good intentions. So if what you mean by that is the fact that are they taken into consideration, of course, no doubt about that. That when we have these good intentions that a person has, there's absolutely no doubt that a good intention is taken into consideration, inshallah. For those of you guys who live in Dallas, inshallah, Saturday night I'll be talking about intentions and the power of intentions for the nights of Qadr, because that's a very important topic. What's the role of intention? How much of a role does it play? What is the meaning of this hadith that we talk about and we hear all the time? إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. What does that mean? Does it mean that only intention is what matters, or is there other things that matter? That's one of the, I would say, one of the most misunderstood ahadith out there. But anyways, so if what you mean is whether they're taken into consideration, yes, in the sense that if you make an intention to do something good, God will give you that reward even if you don't end up doing it because of external factors, because you didn't get a chance to do it. So that's that. But if you mean do the organs bear witness to that? I don't know about that part. I mean that would go back to the same question that was mentioned before. Yes, we have hadith that when a person makes good or bad intentions before they actually do the deed that they're planning on doing, before that even happens, that the angels on the two sides, on the two shoulders of a human being, they realize this. And this is mentioned in the hadith. The person asked, I think it was Imam al-Qadim salawatullahi alayhi, that how do the angels know when a person has the wrong intention? And in response, the Imam said that when this person makes a wrong intention, there is a scent, a very bad smell that originates from this person, that the malaika automatically know that he has made this bad intention. Now we know that obviously when someone makes a bad intention, if they don't follow up on it, then they're not going to be held accountable for it on the Day of Judgment. Nonetheless, it still has its spiritual effects, no doubt about that, right? So good intentions would be the opposite of that, but they definitely taken into consideration and play a role in that regard. Moving on to verse 68, and inshallah with this one I'll end. وَمَن نُعَمِّرْهُ, and this is very beautiful. وَمَن نُعَمِّرْهُ نُنَكِّسْهُ فِي الْخَلْقِ أَفَلَا يَعْقِلُونَ. Why don't these guys get like the memo? Like why don't they realize what we are trying to teach them, is what this verse is saying. And whoever lives longer, نُنَكِّسْهُ فِي الْخَلْقِ, in terms of his physical abilities, we start to take away his physical abilities from him. When it comes to his khalq, his creation, his physical abilities, we start to take away things. أَفَلَا يَعْقِلُونَ? Why are these guys acting so ignorant? Don't they see that they're getting older, and as they're getting older, they're actually losing their physical abilities, right? And even their mental and intellectual abilities a lot of times happens with regards to older ages. Don't these guys understand that this is stuff that they didn't have from themselves, right? This is a message to us that the more you live, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, listen, I'm giving you a chance. As a reminder, I'm going to take away these abilities that I have from you, because at this point, you're so far along at this point, I don't want you to turn against me at this point, right? It's the end of your life. You need to be on my side, right? To benefit yourself, right? I don't want you to turn away from the truth. Therefore, I'm going to give you as many reminders that it's time for you to leave this world as possible. One of the reminders that God gives us is that all of a sudden you'll see the bodily functions that we used to have before and it wasn't even a problem. Now all of a sudden you will see that a person struggles with this, and of course it's painful and it's difficult for us, and it's not the the best thing to go through really. But at the end of the day, it's according to these verses of the Quran, it's a reminder for the human being that the human being is that we're not going to last here, we're not going to stay here forever. Very beautiful verse of the Quran. I'll end with this hadith. Assalamu alaikum to all of you guys the new guys who have joined. I'll end with this hadith. It's very beautiful. I believe this is from the Prophet. He says, "Igtanim khamsan qabla khams," right? Take advantage of 5 things before 5 other things, right? So, first one is shababika qabla hiramek. Take advantage of your youth before the old age comes into play, right? That one is for, it's a reminder for someone, for our youth, our younger, community members. Sihataka qabla suqmek. Take advantage of your health before sickness comes your way, right? وَغِنَاكَ قَبْلَ فَقْرِكَ. And take advantage of your wealth before there comes a time where you don't have that wealth to give in the right path anymore, right? وَفَرَاغِكَ قَبْلَ شُغْلِكَ, and take advantage of your free time, or even mentally, free time, in the sense that mentally you have time to think. قَبْلَ شُغْلِكَ, before you get busy. And in one word, حَيَاتِكَ قَبْلَ مَوْتِكَ, and take advantage of your life while it's still there before your death. This one is for those who might say, oh, شَبَابِكَ قَبْلَ هِرَمِ, well, I'm already old. صحتك قبل, well, I'm already sick. I'm already poor, right? I'm already busy. This last one says حَيَاتِكَ قَبْلَ مَوْتِكَ, you're still alive, right? You can take advantage of that before it ends. And we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that, if this month of Ramadan doesn't wake us up, then I really don't know what will. And that's the scary part, every time we go through the month of Ramadan, that's what I'm thinking about, is that if we have certain habits that we're not able to shake in this month of Ramadan, then I don't know what other part of the year is going to be able to do something like that for us. So we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He helps us with that. Thank you very much, brothers and sisters. Thank you to all of those who joined at the beginning, all of those who joined later as well. Inshallah, I'll end today's session. Just as a FYI, Shaykh Amin will be having his Death in Barzakh course June 15th and June 16th in Dallas, for those of you who are tuning in from Dallas. And inshallah, I believe I will be with you guys. Not Monday, because Monday will be the last night of Qadr, but next Wednesday, inshallah, will be our, I think today was the 6th session, that will be our 7th session, and I'll be with you guys, inshallah. Thank you very much. Keep us in your du'as during these nights. I'm not going to see you guys until the end of the, after the nights of Qadr, so please keep us in your du'as, and please remember us. I'm going to be selfish. Remember me, remember my family, remember, relatives of mine, everyone that, remember everyone that has to do with Shaykh Mahdi, okay? But no, pray for everyone. Pray for our brothers and sisters who are in difficulty and in pain. I mean, I hear news every day. We hear news on a public platform, and then also even on a personal level. People share things with me it's just very difficult, So please pray for everyone during these nights. Thank you very much. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.